Army mateys, we're back doing Pirates of the Caribbean, and we got a guest star on, Mitchell from Movies with Mitchell.
Hello.
Are you guys ready?
Let's do it.
Woo! Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. Let's start with a little bit of history, shall we? So this is based off of, as we know, the Disneyland ride, right?
Yeah. No, explain this, please.
Oh, okay. I shall.
I want to know. Tell me right now.
So in 1967, the original Pirates of the Caribbean ride was opened. And fun fact, it was the last ride that Walt Disney worked on himself. And he actually passed away before it was opened. So I think he passed away like 3 months before it was actually open to the public.
Okay.
So it was his last ride. After the original one opened in California, we got one in Florida in 1973, one in Tokyo in 83, and Paris 92. This is one of my favorite rides when I go to Disney. I love just going through like as many times as you can when you get there, even though the line's always so long, but it's so much fun just being on the boats and the water and just seeing all the animatronics. Do you guys have any fond memories of this ride?
I do.
All right, what do you got?
I've never been on the ride, but I've seen the video where Jack Sparrow scares people on the ride, and that's really funny.
Oh my god, that's
you've got
so
a personal
funny.
story, and you've never been on the ride.
My personal story is
Yeah.
I watched a video.
I saw.
So when I was a kid, to make me not be scared of the pirates in the Haunted Mansion, I got one of the toy guns from the gift shop, and then when we were riding through on the log ride, I was shooting the pirates.
Oh heck yeah!
Yeah, I was a big pirate kid. I loved pirates when I was a little kid. Like my 4th birthday was pirate themed, which these movies came out like at the exact perfect time for me because I was 1 when the first one came out. So that trilogy kind of permeated the older kids and seeped down into my childhood.
Yeah.
You good?
No, I am. I'm just imagining like you're like I was 1, the ideal age for Pirates of the Caribbean, and I'm just imagining you wearing like pirate Pampers or
No,
something.
that's what I said. The older kids, it kind of
Yeah.
seeped down, and I thought pirates were cool.
Pirates were cool. I remember. I think it was my 9th birthday. I had all pirates themed. It was the coolest thing. I had a pirates cake and everything.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. Love pirates. But I do want to go back to the video with Jack Sparrow being in the ride because that is an awesome video. If you've never seen it, check it out.
Well, they added that after the movies and stuff.
Well,
They went back and put some stuff in.
I think he's referring to Johnny Depp actually going in and scaring people on the ride.
Oh, I was talking about the figure.
Yeah,
They have a
and
Jack
then they
Sparrow
eventually updated it to have some movie elements in it.
figure. Yeah.
like he would just go like
Yeah.
he'd be like, oh look, it's a cool animatronic. He'd do like I'm Johnny Depp, bleh, like doing a classic Johnny Depp, bleh.
Yeah, and the audience thought it was just another animatronic, and they just kept.
Yeah, he just does it. So yeah, this is what he would do. Mitchell, have you been on
any
this
memories?
ride?
I have. I grew up in a Disney family, of course. Like we went a lot, and for me, this was always my favorite like dark ride, just because the atmosphere, the music, all of that, just like came together to create a really whole experience. And just the fact that it was very immersive, like you were on a boat, you were flying through like different show scenes about like the town and the ship. It's just one of those rides to me that like really stood out among the rest, just because of how immersive and fun it was. I forget exactly when the first time I rode it was. I do know that like Jack Sparrow was in the ride, so like for me, going to the ride first and then watching the movies, I already knew that the character of Jack Sparrow existed. I wasn't one of those ones that like rode the ride and then they added the figure after like the movies came out. Like
Yeah.
I knew of Jack Sparrow, I just hadn't seen the movies until like much later. But I do remember the ride fondly. I think that it's a very fun attraction, and I think that's why the movies work so well, is because it's able to kind of play off that atmosphere of the ride.
Yeah, and it's very interesting how you take a ride like that and then be like, all right, let's make a movie
Jungle Cruise, baby.
based off that.
The rocket is
which
tiny tugboat.
Very later. But what I didn't realize, so there was actually 4 movies based off of rides before Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
So we had a Tower of Terror. I believe it was like a...
No, Tower of Terror is based off an episode from the Twilight Zone, but they did make
They made a
an
show.
episode for the
They
ride.
made like a made-for-TV movie of it, I think.
Yeah, they
Okay.
did. It was an actual Tower of Terror movie. For the,
Okay.
yeah. And then they had a Mission of Mars and then Country Bears.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I remember growing up on that.
I did too.
I
Not
know.
good.
It's
for
not
me,
good.
But I loved it.
I know none of these things.
No?
What is
Okay.
Country of Bears?
The Country
Country
Bears,
Bears.
Jamboree. It's a
doesn't
bunch
know
of
it.
animatronic bears, and they sing songs.
It's awesome.
It's
And
in like
that's
a
what the
theater
mo-
at Disney, so they put on a show. This is the ride, and then the movie is about a bear that is a fan of the Country Bears getting the band back together.
Yeah, he's pretty much an adopted bear from a
human family
family.
adopted a baby bear kid.
And he's going on a journey
Yeah.
with Country Bears. It's
It's
fantastic.
basically Almost Famous, but bears.
Yeah. And then the last one before this movie, Pirates of the Caribbean, we had the Haunted Mansion,
Yeah,
which I think out of all of those,
bad
I think the
movie.
Haunted
Yeah.
Mansion honestly did the best, which is saying a lot.
Better than Pirates or up to
No, up to
Okay.
Pirates, Haunted Mansion was the best. So
Okay.
I'm laying this because I'm like, how do you look back and be like, all of these movies sucked. Why are we doing this again? So I think it was in the 90s, Ted Elliott and Terry Russo, I believe is his last name. So they worked on a lot of things together. They worked on Aladdin, Puppet Masters, Mask of Zorro, Godzilla, also Shrek. So these were writers.
That's a mixed bag.
Yeah, all different things. But obviously, a lot of those are pretty solid movies. And they pitched this back in the 90s to do a pirate film, and they just wanted to do an awesome pirate film. It wasn't till the 2000s when I think Disney was looking for an epic adventure, because at that point, Lord of the Rings was coming out. And then what was the other big movie at that time?
Star Wars prequels.
Star Wars prequels. There was something
That's
else.
a good point. I never thought about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, so it was Lord of the Rings, Star Wars prequels, and then the Harry Potters.
Yeah.
We had just had the second one come out in 2002.
Golly, what kind of a golden age in there?
What a golden age! Yeah,
A golden age for brands.
yeah. So
Before they
That'll
Di-
never die. All of these things continue to make movies in the past 5 years.
yeah, and all these movies will come back later too. So with that being said, Disney was like, okay, we need an adventure film, and hopefully something that can build into a franchise. So that was one of the reasons why we didn't get the Pirates of the Caribbean. We got the Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl, to indicate, hopefully, if it does well, more films.
Now, I have a question.
Yes.
Does this movie have any connection to the ride? Is the Black Pearl like in the ride?
I don't believe the Black Pearl is, but there are a lot of things that they took directly from the ride to make sure they paid homage to in the movie. So a couple things that they did. So the song is from the ride, and they did put that in the movie.
Like the theme.
The theme.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That guy should have gotten a raise. He probably didn't. He probably got fired.
And then not getting too far into the movie, but the scene with the people in the jail cell trying to get the
dog.
key from the
Yeah.
dog, that's directly from the ride.
That's in one of my personal memories from the Johnny Depp video. I remember
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they jingles the key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's directly from the ride. That's why they did that.
Nice.
Yeah. And there's a couple more. But before we get too far into it, I do want to mention just how, this was my whole childhood and how many toys and video games and everything. Did you guys grow up on any of the video games?
The Lego game.
Not
The
really.
Lego game?
That was way later.
I read a review on Letterbox for the fourth Pirates of the Caribbean, and it said, the best thing about this movie is that we got the video game.
The video. So
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah.
I'm referring to the Pirates of the Caribbean Online that came out in 2007 that I grew up playing with my brother. It was fantastic. I won't go too far, but has anyone played it, say it in the comments, because it's one of the best games ever. You could buy galleons and frigates, I think.
Frigates. This is just Sea of Thieves.
I was young. I couldn't say. I couldn't speak. It was like the original Sea of Thieves. And it was so much fun. So much fun. And then on top of that, with all that being said, do you know how much the whole franchise has grossed since the beginning?
1.5 billion.
That sounds
The
about
whole
right.
franchise.
That sounds like a good
Or
estimate.
That's
including
my
like,
guess.
not
Yeah.
the movies.
Knowing,
movies.
just guessing
the
their
movies.
going off their budget. That's my guess. Am I in the ballpark?
Not even close.
I think it's
yikes.
2 billion.
3?
3.
4.
5.
4.5.
Holy cow.
4.5 billion,
Man.
making it the 16th most successful film series.
That's
Wow.
scary.
And guess what ones it's falling behind?
Star
What, like-
Wars.
Lord of the Rings,
Star Wars.
Harry Potter,
Star Wars.
Star Wars, and then Marvel. For some reason, they split Marvel. Marvel and then Avengers are two separate
Well, whatever.
things for whatever.
No, they do. The like Spider-Man's up there because they like put those in
Spider-Man.
different things.
Yeah, so those are the only things that fell behind, which is ironic because that's what they were trying to beat. But they definitely went up there and started competing with the big dogs. $4.5 billion. Now into the first movie, Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl. So the plot of this film, we start with a little Elizabeth Swann seeing a pirate ship going in, seeing the flag floating. And then 8 years later, we get Captain Jack Sparrow arriving and seeking the Black Pearl, right?
Ooh, what an entrance scene.
Ooh,
It's so good.
Good.
Yeah.
You learn everything you need to know about that character within like the first 10 seconds of seeing him on screen.
Yep, just
he-
him just standing on the ship slowly.
Slowly
Sinking
sinking, but
down.
also when he passes the dead pirates, he pays respect to his fellow pirates. Yeah, and he shows up, of course, looking all heroic, but then his boat is underwater.
Yep.
That scene is, I think, actually, because you can remember like everything. You can remember like everything you just said. You remember the specific music that plays and how it, like, does the little chimes and respectful part when he does the little bow to the other pirates. Like everything about that is iconic.
Even just the way he holds out his foot to step onto the dock when he arrives.
Yep. And then right into the first conversation, you just get that whole vibe where he's just like living in his own world, man.
But he's also, he's manipulating people.
Yeah.
He's more, in this one specifically, he's very intelligent. He gets dumber as the series goes on.
That is
But he's
true.
very intelligent in this one.
And
And,
we
he's
can
like
get that.
manipulating people by just like speaking riddles.
So we meet Jack, and then we immediately meet the Navy, and he gets in trouble and goes to jail. And then we meet Will, which is he's a blacksmith, and then we meet Elizabeth. So our three main characters. Elizabeth then gets taken by the Black Pearl, and we have to go save her. So
Yeah.
Jack and Will here are gonna go save Elizabeth Swann.
I
Shall
didn't
we?
even think about that.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. So with that being said, that's the plot of the movie.
Mitchell, what do you think about first Pirates of the Caribbean intro?
I think that it really sets the tone off the bat. Again, like I've been in classes and even my first year of college of film school where they will say like character introductions and we will watch that scene like over and over again.
Really?
Yeah.
Because it like actually establishes everything you need to know off the bat and like just goes from there. Like you get all the character beats you need, as you mentioned. You get really a sense of like he's kind of experienced, but he's also kind of like, I don't want to say dumb because he's kind of, as you mentioned, I do think he gets dumber as the series progresses. But you can tell that he's really not as sure-footed as other pirates. Probably he's not really that organized. He's in a little dinghy boat. He's like drifting into the dock on fumes. You really get that sense that yeah, he's a pirate, but he's not really the best pirate. And it kind of ties in with like what the English say throughout the first like movie, where there's like that's got to be the best pirate I've ever seen, and like people joke about that because while he is kind of, doesn't appear to be intelligent, he really is, because the skill and like the technique he uses to like escape situations is very comical and very enjoyable. And I think it just really introduces Will and Elizabeth's character arcs in a way that feels kind of natural and needed. I think that you really get what you need to know about their relationship off the bat, and it kind of grows as the movies progress. But overall, the character intro's phenomenal. I think that they really stick the landing, and I think that it really sets the tone for the series. So
For all three characters too, because you get right off the bat Elizabeth, like when they're trying to capture her and she grabs the sword display off the wall. Too bad the swords aren't real swords. That kind of stinks. But you get off the bat, Elizabeth is a resourceful character. She's gonna figure a way out if she can. And then same thing for Will. He walks into their room, into their house, accidentally breaks the candle. You know immediately he is not from that upper class world.
Yeah, and also just a character that's just gonna go try everything and just run with no
That he
rhyme or reason.
it says that from the bat he's not in the right place for him.
Right.
He hasn't found his calling yet.
So, and then after that whole intro scene, we get that scene with Jack and Will fighting in the blacksmith, and we get that introduction to two of our main characters here, which just kind of, I love how it sets the tone between their two different characters, where Will is that honorable, like seeking to be that honorable person and fighting and defending against pirates, and it sets up that tone for later that we learn that he is actually a pirate. And then Jack's he cheats in the fight, and it sets up that whole tone where he plays smart and not necessarily the most skilled, but he's the smartest in the room.
Oh yeah,
That-
because Will is a better sword fighter.
This
Right.
is the first fight scene in the franchise, right? Like,
Yeah,
okay.
the first
Yeah.
sword
Yeah.
fight scene.
Okay.
I love how dusty it is.
Well,
Like how
that's a-
how dirty Jack looks and how dusty Will's face gets.
I
Like,
do-
there's a level of grit in this one that the other ones don't quite get to.
Yeah, and I think they always do have really good like sword fights, and I think those are some of the more,
well, yeah.
especially in the later ones. That's kind of like, while they do start to dip in quality, that's some of like the higher points. It's like they know how to do the fun piratey combat, whatever.
They fight on a wagon seesaw. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
You can clearly see that the people that helped do those scenes knew what they were doing.
Oh,
I think they were the same people that did like Star Wars and some other things. Like I'm sure he was in Lord of the Rings too, helping with those sword scenes too. Just big names helping out there.
All the
and you
actors
can
took it
just tell.
seriously, from what I've heard as well.
Yeah, I mean that is the most memorable sword scene I think is at the beginning with Will and Jack.
in that movie,
Especially
In,
the
in
first
all
film.
the movies, I would argue almost.
The wheel in the second.
the
one.
wheel in the second.
That's pretty iconic.
It's
That's fair.
memorable, yeah.
Yeah.
So after that scene, we then get Jackson's jail and we break him out, and then we're gonna go save Elizabeth. So this is where I love this part with the boats, where we commandeer the big ship so we can get the other ship,
Mm-hmm.
which is awesome. And while we're on this point, I just want to note that one ship, the Interceptor, is an actual ship. I believe the Black Pearl was a barge that they just built a set on, and I don't even think they could sail it into open sea.
Yeah.
Which
Cowards.
Yeah, cowards.
I know for those scenes on like the island that Jack is supposed to be, isolated on, they have a giant barge right off camera where everybody else is hanging out.
Yeah,
It's a party boat.
it's one of the things. Like, how did they get some of these shots? It's so cool.
That's what sets his first one apart too. And the rest of the trilogy are the real model ships, and by models I mean like replicas, I guess,
Right.
Because they're to scale in the location. You can tell it's the real jungle around them when they're in Port Royal. Like it feels like a real location. There's no like CGI extensions, which is so common now, and I'm really just starting to get tired of it. Is all the CGI set extensions, because it's so obvious.
And you kind of notice that in the fourth and fifth one, especially.
Yeah.
Like it gets bad as it goes on. It doesn't
Yeah.
really feel practical as the movies progress, which is kind of a damper on like the other three or the other two. But the first three, phenomenal from a practical set point. Like the fact that they actually went and built something like that for a movie like this is just like so applause-worthy, because now you don't really see that. Rarely you see that, but it's just like such a standout for these movies. It's just such a great thing.
Yeah, you'll see like parts of a ship, like just the wheel in front of a green screen, and
Yeah.
it's not the same
No.
as Jack Sparrow standing on a boat on the ocean.
Yeah,
And I could be jumping ahead, but I think the third one, isn't that like at the time like the most expensive movie or something?
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
the
think
third
it
one
is,
was,
yeah.
and then the fourth one was.
So they beat their
Yeah.
own record.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fourth one
yes.
was the most
Yes,
expensive.
And it looks
of that
cheaper.
time,
It looks
it looks
cheaper than the
cheap
third
as
one.
crap.
It
It's like-
does.
It looks terrible.
Yeah.
Oh, and you do know it's the second highest grossing film out of the whole series, right?
The fourth one. Well, that makes sense.
What?
I
Yeah.
could. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That absolutely makes sense.
Ugh.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, kind of like riding off the coattails of the third one. Like people are excited and they're like, "Oh, another Pirates of the Caribbean movie," and then they get that, and they're just like, "Eh."
It's the same reason The Force Awakens and other stuff like that is like some of the highest grossing movies ever.
Yeah, because people are excited when you starve them for a little bit and
Yeah.
then bring it back. That's why I keep saying Star Wars needs to take a break so that you can starve the sheeple and then give them something
then
in
give
10
them
years
something
that
bad.
everybody goes and buys. That's how you do
Yeah,
it.
That's how you do it.
But I'll cancel my Disney Plus subscription. And I
No,
don't-
you won't.
Mm.
No, you won't. You'll
I mean-
forget.
because I use Blades.
I was going to say you're using mine, so no, he won't. Reining us back into the movie here, I do want to talk about the scene where we learn about the curse, and we get the first couple shots where they're all skeletons.
I love that. I love how you think Barbossa is poisoning the food, but no, he's just like getting off and watching her eat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You just feel like, oh, these guys are just longing for that food. Like you can feel it in Barbossa's like
Yeah.
face while he's just watching the apple. Like,
Yeah.
I wish I could have that.
And once again, Elizabeth steals a knife. She's doing everything she can to just be a badass.
Yeah, and that scene in particular, that's one of the memories. One of my favorite things from this film is just that scene where it like goes bird's eye,
Yeah.
and we get the whole ship of all the skeleton crew just like, and then we get those shots where they're like, right in your face.
It's so, that's the thing is like the style, there's a vision behind these, the first, the trilogy, that once you watch the fourth and the fifth, they're so lacking in style, and especially with the camera work, because they move the camera, but not in the same way. The camera work in the trilogy is very much in service of the story. You know, he's going in close with a wide angle lens on a skeleton to be like, boo, rather than just a flat look at all these skeletons.
Right, exactly. And you feel like, I remember one fact that I read about was the inspiration for how the skeletons looked was like dried jerky.
Yeah.
And they took that inspiration to get that feel, and that's exactly what it feels like. Yeah.
I mean, they're CGI from 2001,
Yeah, for
so you
sure.
can kind of tell, but the lighting conditions also kind of sell it because it's dark, moonlit, misty, so you can kind of forgive it, you know? Because it's almost like when that happens, you're in another world.
And it's like quicker. Like they don't like settle on. It's like, look at the skeleton the whole movie. It's like, okay, you boop and you bop, like it's gone.
All right.
Boop and you bop.
Well, so you talked about how you watched like the film, like the intro for the movie, like in film school. There's like, because we talked about all the practical stuff. Like, is there anything else with these that you learn about? Like, you know, this is a good thing that this did.
I mean, aside from like the intro, the character intros, which people still claim is like one of the best character intros to a movie, and also the practical stuff, because like there's been a few times like in high school I took a film course and he brought up like, I think it was one of the ship battles or something, and just the fact that it looked real, even though some things might have been edited in post. But I think aside from that, really, it's funny you mentioned the scene, because that's the one that, like, when I'm showing, like, I peer pressure my friends to watch this one a few times. Like, I've, like, one or two of my friends are like, I've never seen a Pirates of the Caribbean movie. I'm just like, watch the first one. If you don't like it, don't continue. But if you like it, continue. And this is the one scene where they always say, that's a great reveal, because it's, like, unexpected. If you don't know what you're going to watch and you're going into this movie, you're expecting, oh, they kidnap the girl, they're going to battle her and get her back. But they throw in this whole like skeleton curse thing, and it's a really cool angle, especially the effects and stuff. I think some of it looks a little janky, but I think for the most part, it looks pretty seamless for what they were doing at the time period. And I think that's one of those instances of CGI in the series where it looks like natural to what the story needs.
And it's necessary at that point in time.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Your only other option would have been Ray Harryhausen stop motion, which, I mean, I would have loved it.
That would be cool.
In 2001, that's not happening, man.
I don't think that would have sold either. I think that
was the era where
reveal.
they were like, no, if we can do it CGI, we will, because practical bad, especially stop motion. After Jurassic Park, everybody was just like, no, stop motion bad, which breaks my heart.
So trying to kind of wrap up the plot of the first one, right? So we get that whole scene with all the coins and Jack doing his famous switcheroo and taking the coin and stealing the coin and becoming a skeleton himself, so he can do that endless battle with Barbossa, which is just awesome. You just think he's so cool. Like, oh, I wish I was like Jack.
I mean, you know exactly why he did it too. It's, you know, couldn't help myself.
Even being portrayed by Will, and he's still always somehow fighting for good and still keeping his own interests in mind. That balance is so good.
Yeah. He is chaotic good.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I do find that like Barbossa's, because like I feel like he sometimes gets in Jack Sparrow's shadow because he's like the other pirate kind of. Yeah. But like he's so good. Like he is awesome.
Yeah, and one of the fun facts about him, I think he's known to have said that he always wanted to stand on the left side of the screen because he believes that the audience always reads the screen from left to right. So he always wanted to be on the left so that he made sure he was in the shot and people paid attention to him. And I, hands down, he is probably one of the top characters in the whole franchise, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I mean, he just feels like a pirate. Like, I don't know, like...
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it's like, where'd they get this guy? Pirate store, I don't know. Like,
he gives Jack's role some authenticity, too.
Yeah.
Like, as playing a foil to Jack, and like you said, the more stereotypical pirate captain, whereas Jack is the more flamboyant, you know, carefree captain.
And especially in the later movies, like some of the better scenes in the later ones as they start to decline a bit, like they're like banter still. Like that's when it's like, man, this is why I'm here, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So jumping into the second movie, Dead Men's Chest, coming out in 2006.
Come to negotiate, eh? Have you, you slimy git? Look what I got. I got a jar of dirt. I got a jar of dirt. And guess what's inside it? Enough.
We now have this kind of expanding world. Now that the first one did a great job with introducing the pirates, we now get Lord Beckett introing this movie by arresting Will and Elizabeth while they're getting married.
What a meanie.
Weakest part of the trilogy is Beckett for me.
Really?
I just don't care for his character at all. I understand they need
a default bad guy.
A new bad guy.
A default bad guy, but it really feels like they wanted to make the Commodore a good guy, and then they had to replace that role with another guy, and that's Beckett.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
He is the weakest part of the trilogy for me. That said, bringing in Davy Jones is awesome.
Davy Jones
He
is
looks
fantastic.
he still looks so good.
He is so good. So that's kind of what this kind of whole plot is. We have Beckett looking for the compass so that he can rule the seas and kill all the pirates. And then we have Davy Jones, who's coming after Jack because he had made a deal with Jack to let him be a captain for a certain amount of years. And then once that time's up, he owed 100 souls. So that's kind of the main two moving plots of this film. And when we get introduced to Davy Jones, sorry, a little moan there because it's
a little Davy moan.
A little Davy moan for those tentacles.
Anime guy.
The CGI here, I mean, it's really good.
It's
for
really,
the
really
time
good on
period
Davy
and
Doesn't
how
look
they-
dated at all.
No, it holds up. And I think the whole crew, besides one person, had CGI. Do you know who the one person is?
Bootstrap Bill.
Bootstrap
Yeah.
Bill.
Oh,
He was
that,
Tactical makeup, and that's
I thought it was a trick
Skarsgård.
question.
no.
That's Skarsgård.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stellan, the Baron from Dune.
So he was the only one. So 4.5 hours of makeup, I think, and they made comments how you had Davy Jones, who was in like the dots.
He's in
and
the
stuff.
silver mocap suit, so
And
the behind the scenes look very silly.
It's very silly. And then you have him in full makeup, and then you're just reacting to both of them. But
His whole crew, I mean, it feels like Lord of the Rings orc stuff. Like every
Yeah.
single one of those
Yeah.
dudes is like unique. Like,
Yes, that's why I like the design of the Flying Dutchman crew is so creative. There's a guy that's like an eel and he like pops in and out of like his armor. That's awesome. There's the hammerhead guy, the snail guy who can like wiggle around in his shell.
Yeah.
Man. Somebody was allowed to cook on those designs, and I love
Like
it.
imagine you're becoming one of the fish guys. It's like, okay, can I just like be one of like the guys? Like I'll be hammerhead guy so I can like walk around. But you're like shell guy and you're like, like, you know? It's like no, I don't want to be shell guy. Like,
I will say what you were alluding to with the two driving plots. This is where stuff starts to get a little bit convoluted. Like a little too many plot elements are introduced to where you can't keep track of exactly the significance of, the map that they're using, or, the dude's eye that keeps rolling around. What's the compass doing at this point? Where are Elizabeth and Will? Oh, they're over here. There's so many ships at any given point to pay attention to. Oh, and then Beckett, of course. Also Beckett. I always forget about that guy.
it's very,
that guy.
it's very Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Okay.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah. And that's why this one was a bit of a step down for me from the first one because of all that and the anticlimactic ending. Because really, this is a part one. The second and the third are just really one big long movie. So, I mean, minus points by default.
Would you have liked this more if it was a part one, part two, like
if they
if
told
they
you.
like Pirates of the Caribbean, Davy Jones, part one or something?
Yeah, it still needed to wrap up a little better, though.
Yeah, I think that's the point where, like, for me, when my friends love the first one or don't like the first one and they're like, should I continue? I say probably not if you're not a fan of the first, just because I love these sequels. I think the second one's like my favorite out of them. But I think that the thing that kind of holds them back is that they are very plot heavy and convoluted. They're not as adventurous and free going and freewheeling as the first, where it's like you can just watch it and have fun. You kind of have to be invested in the plot here, and it gets really difficult, especially with like the whole Calypso thing. Like it took me repeat viewings to understand what the heck that was talking about, and I don't think you understand until the third really. But like the second one doesn't really explain it, so you're kind of just like, who is this lady? What's she doing? Like, what's her
She's
motive?
there.
Yeah.
Magic, I guess.
Yeah.
That's where the first one is kind of like doing the Indiana Jones thing, where it's a throwback to, old Errol Flynn swashbuckling movies from the 30s and 40s. You know how Indiana Jones was a throwback to also, kind of those old adventure movies. And what's that Charlton Heston one from the 50s?
Oh man, I'm blanking.
Because they literally took Indiana Jones' outfit from him. Anyway, this isn't an Indiana Jones video, but the first one is kind of an homage and a perfect adventure film, and then the second two in the trilogy are definitely like, okay, now we're blockbusters, baby.
Yeah.
So
and
it really changes the feel subconsciously.
it does for sure. And they definitely had the budget at this point, right,
Oh,
to
yeah.
do that. I mean, like, I think we said this earlier, the ships in this they were building ships for every single one of these ships, which
Yeah.
is just insane at this point.
I respect that more.
But I do, even though there was a lot going on, I feel like they still successfully gave us like satisfied each point at some
Yeah.
point in the two films, even though it was a lot and you really do have to be invested. I thought it's one of the few films that can give you a ton in your face and still deliver. And I thought, and the second film kind of does that with how people received it. I feel like the audience was a 72 on the tomato meter. People loved this film, and it was given one of the awards for best visual effects
I
of
can
that
see
year.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Freaking better of.
Yeah,
I know.
mean, the visual effects
for
of this-
Davy Jones alone, I
Yeah.
understand. I will say, not a fan of the Kraken.
I forgot that was this movie, honestly.
Yeah, not
Look,
a fan of the Kraken.
I love the concept of cryptids and pirate tales of the Kraken at sea, and I love that they tried, but it's not great. The effects on it are not great.
I didn't think it was too the tentacles when they come down. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. Well, there's some shots that are very rough. It feels like they got a little bit too big for their britches when shooting those action scenes. They don't really land. They don't feel as visceral as anything from the first.
Like it's not as grounded.
Yes.
That's fair. But I do like how they built up, right? Each scene that we got the Kraken, right? We got a little bit more of the Kraken.
Yeah.
And then by the end, we finally got that big shot with Jack Sparrow and that weird, like,
The eye
the eye.
when it's on the beach. Yeah, I wish there was a better shot of that because it's still kind of hard to make it out what it's supposed to be in that wide. And eventually I was like, oh, it's literally just a giant squid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be like, I thought they were going to have something interesting there, but it's kind of hard to make it out in that wide shot. And then they walk up close and they do, the classic, they put a tentacle in front of Rigetti and the other guy. They're walking on it and they put a tentacle in front of their feet so you can hide the bad compositing there.
Little tricks of the
So,
trade
I mean,
there.
I noticed that. And again, I'm like, oh, you're convincing me that it's not real with that.
That's fair.
As somebody who watches too many movies.
But I still think it holds up today even though it has those bad moments.
I will say, going from Black Pearl to these, I was like, oh, these are a step down. And then going to the other two, I was like, take me back. Take me back.
So the last point on this one, this is number one in the franchise for highest grossing.
Oh, wow.
So this is, I think, almost 1.1 billion and worldwide. Yeah.
And that's 2006.
2006.
That's
Holy
wild.
cow.
Yeah.
Yeah. This one did good stuff. And allowing us to get our part 2 of the film, jumping into At World's End, which came out in 2007.
Full bore and into the abyss! Are you mad? Ha! You afraid to get wet?
Which is kind of interesting how they were able to get it out so quickly.
So this was a year later.
a year later.
Didn't they shoot them back
They
to
shot
back?
him back to back.
Yeah.
Gore Verbinski said that in an interview, and it kind of makes sense when you look at him, just because of how, like, sometimes when you watch a movie where it's like the sequel, you can notice that time has passed. But here, it feels like it was like the same movie, and they just like cut it in half, which is to its testament, like a positive note about the film. I think that it really does continue the events of the second one flawlessly. For me, this one is not my favorite, but I think it has some of the best sequences in the franchise by far. I think there's standout scenes in this one that are really, really strong. But for me, it doesn't really tie everything together in a way that feels like, whole or it kind of drags considerably for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the big part that they struggled with is they introduced even more. They kept going bigger and bigger. We now have the pirate lords and like everything. And
that was when they were like, we're in, was it when they went to Singapore?
Yeah.
I had to look it up on a map, and I'm like, how far away is that from the Caribbean? And I was like, how the heck did these guys sail all the way over here? So they're literally getting the world of pirates together,
right.
Which is, that's too much, man.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
We're Pirates of the Caribbean, not Pirates of the Indian
Pirates of
Ocean.
the world.
Imagine if that was the title, with just Pirates of Earth.
Yeah,
That's the
Pirates
like
of
it
Earth.
went too big, and especially the end in the maelstrom. I'm just like, I appreciate what they're doing with the swords fight, but with all the
Goes on
CGI
way
wrapped
too
around
long.
them, it goes on way too
You mean
long. And
you don't love the Elizabeth and Will getting married in the Maelstrom?
I thought that was gonna have like a supernatural reason, like they're doing that to then like they'll get extra power to defeat the
It
bad
just
guys.
happens.
No,
No,
it
it
just
just
happens.
happens.
What the is that, man? What is that?
I don't know. That's kind of a couple of the like things like that just drew me out.
Yeah.
Also, like, did you ever understand what the song was at the beginning, and kind of what that was doing?
It was this
You mean the opening sequence?
The
Like
opening sequence with the song and all the pirates getting hung.
I had no idea what
I didn't
they were
understand the
trying to go for.
significance. I just figured it
So-
was like a pirate song or something.
So that significance is why they went to Singapore, right? That was calling all the pirate lords together. It was a
Like-
calling.
like King Kong Godzilla New Empire.
Yeah. So the whole, like, I think when the coin drops, it's kind of like the first film when the medallion hit the water,
Mhm.
And then
where
sent
it does
out,
the
like,
calling.
Yeah.
But again, it makes
that's the
sense because they're all
significance.
local to the Caribbean.
Right.
It doesn't make sense to do it throughout the whole world.
But that just
Come
raises more
shave us.
questions. Like, who is this kid that's holding the coin? Why does he know to
Right.
call these pirate lords?
Yeah. Is
Why
the
does
kid
it
a pirate?
Not, like, who knows?
Yeah. And,
Where are
I
his
only,
parents?
I only know this point because I looked it up before. I had no clue.
Yeah, they
It
don't
doesn't
explain
make
well enough.
sense.
Yeah.
It's-
No.
The weakest opening of any of the movies, because then it's just that and Elizabeth quietly sailing in a boat in a place that none of us have ever been.
Yeah.
Like,
and
it-
then you just
no
kind
character.
of like,
We haven't seen this place. We don't know what is happening, what's going on. It's slow. It's not engaging us.
Another thing with this film that kind of starts, like, I feel like every franchise starts to do, we get those two silly characters that were kind of scary in the first movie,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
and then they were funny, so now we have to have every single joke made every single time we see them.
In my opinion, they're not as bad as Jack.
Jack,
I think they
In this
they
one?
are not as offensive to me as Jack is, especially in the third one. Yes, that scene
Really?
with Jack in Davy Jones's locker. Well, that might be the second one,
No.
but
No,
where there's a bunch
it's
of
the third one.
Jacks.
That's the
okay.
third one.
Yeah, bad scene.
really?
Too long. Jack needs to interact with other characters that are opposite of him. That's what makes him work. Him interacting with himself it doesn't work. It's too goofy.
It didn't. I agree, it was not the best part of the film, but it still. I didn't think it was awful. I didn't think it took me out
And
of who Jack was.
Man,
Well, I mean, the scene goes on for way too long. The joke with
Yeah.
him trying to eat that, what even was
Peanut?
it?
it's just a
peanut or something.
piece of
was
half
a
of
peanut.
a peanut.
It's just like that gag goes on for way too long, and I think that's
It's
the
like
theme.
actual Jack
Yeah.
trying to find the peanut,
And then I'll go to Davy Jones' locker.
yeah,
because it will kill you.
it will. Kill
I have
you.
a peanut allergy. Watch our Halloween video.
Whoa, deep cut.
Deep cut.
Deep cut.
Lore.
But I think for me, like saying in line with like it goes on for way too long. That's the entire first hour of this movie. It
Yes.
just drags. Like the setup to get him out of JV Jones's locker needed to be cut considerably. Like the Singapore scene goes on for too long. The scene where they fall down the waterfall is kind of cool, but it's just like, come on, speed it up. And like, I don't know. It just like by the time they get him out of Davy Jones's locker in this movie, I'm kind of like just uninvested because I don't even like. There's so many different plot points that I kind of struggle to remember like what their goal is after they get out of Davy Jones's locker. And I think that the up is down scene is cool, like where they try to get out of it. I think that's memorable. But overall, like this is the film of the Gore Verbinski trilogy that I rewatch the least, just because it's not fun like the other two. I know like the second one has the same kind of atmosphere where it's slower pacing, but I mean it does have memorable action set pieces. Like here, I'm like struggling to think of any action set pieces in this one that are like on the level of the other two. in terms of like spectacle and action.
The only thing I can think of is Jack and Davy Jones fighting on the mast, but that's not close to the
No.
wheel or
Yeah.
the blacksmith fight scene in the first one. Just
That's what I was-
nowhere close.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It was the last scene. That was about the only thing that could come close
Yeah.
with all the rain and stuff. But
I
it
I
just kinda
agree
fell
with you,
short.
and I think the issue is Beckett, because so much of this film is spent. We're on this ship talking about how we want this ship.
Yeah.
Now we're on this ship talking about how we want this ship. And Beckett wants to control the ocean, and he controls Davy Jones. Now let's all go over here and talk to
yeah.
Jack Sparrow. It's just so much like talking in politics but no
Yeah.
action.
I mean, I
Yeah.
don't like his character or love his character, but I do think that his finale, the end of his character arc, that scene is so memorable where the ship is just like flying around him. I think that is a standout. I think
It's
that
solid.
I mean, I think that for me, I don't think the character does as good of a job as being an antagonist. Like the whole thing with him teaming up with Davy Jones has never made sense to me because it's like I forget if they explain it exactly, but like why does Davy Jones listen to him?
Well,
He's got the heart.
he's got the heart.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense. I forgot about that. It's just like
A lot of
for
plot
me-
points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, that's
But
Yeah,
then you
so-
could have made it interesting. What I didn't understand is why doesn't Davy Jones then try to team up with Jack Sparrow to get the heart back?
yeah. I mean,
You know, if we're all double crossing here, why is Davy Jones the only one who is like made to be after Dead Man's Chest, where he's the main villain and is so intimidating? He's just Beckett's bitch.
Yeah.
I don't know how
It is
else to
kind of
describe
interesting.
it.
Like out of all the pirates in the whole pirate world, why is Davy Jones so separated?
Yeah.
yeah.
They just separate him as like I don't even know. Like
Well, he's
an
supposed to
anomaly.
ferry souls to the
Yeah.
dead, and because he didn't do that, he became all
became-
tentacly.
Yeah.
But then the fifth one breaks that rule, so I don't know
Yeah.
what happens there.
It was epic, but it definitely fell short with how many plot points were there. That I think that was my main thing. But it was well received. I think it did just as good on the tomato meter as the second one. So people still enjoy this one, which is probably fair. This is the last one I probably can say I enjoyed.
Yeah. I honestly, if
100%.
if Dead Man's Chest had a more definitive ending, I would just watch him as a duology. If it
That's
ended
fair.
more definitively, but as
Yeah.
it stands, I will probably just be rewatching the first one, and if I really feel the need for more pirates, then I'll watch the trilogy,
Right.
and that is it.
Yeah. Done after that.
I mean, it is. I mean, it's like it's a solid trilogy, but the first one does just stand out so much. Like, I mean, like when you watch, you know, any other franchise and you got the one, it's like, man, that's the movie. Like, I don't know, like
Yeah.
the Terminator franchise. Like, there's like, you know, there's 5 of them or whatever, but people only watch like the first 2. It's stuff like
Right.
that. Like Pirates of the Caribbean, it's like it's the first one. I know you disagree.
Oh, for Terminator?
yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. It really is that first one. And then if you're feeling frisky, you go to the second two.
Yeah,
And then after that, you're good. So
which
and-
is a shame. I just wish the 2 sequels were just cut down a little bit. Just
Yeah.
come down a little bit.
I feel like they also like because you said they filmed them back to back. So like I wonder if they had like 3 movies worth of ideas that they wanted to spread out across the 2 movies, and then the final like thing it's like we'll just divide this by like Jack Sparrow dying and coming back. That'll be like the middle. That's kind of how
yeah.
I feel about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of felt like they weren't sure of a trilogy until the first one did success
Yeah,
fully. And then after that, they were like, all right, now we can do our epic.
I would argue they weren't sure about anything until the first one did well, because the first
Right.
one it just stands.
It does.
What Eisner or Bob I think it was Bob Iger at the time, didn't like whoever the CEO of Disney was at the time, did not like Johnny Depp's performance as Jack Sparrow. When the first one, when they were, screening it for the studio, he was like, "This is gonna ruin the whole film." Oops!
And then he's probably
Yeah.
like, I personally thought I did the.
Haha, I lied.
That's a classic big
I think-
big Bob move right there.
Yeah.
That's a
I
classic
remember,
Bob.
so there's some things Johnny Depp was saying, like he was just going crazy, like listening to no one with these and just doing his own things. And he was afraid they were going to fire him because of it. But they just let him have it. But yeah, he is the standout probably of this whole trilogy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and we haven't mentioned he inspired his performance based on Keith Richards' performance as himself from the Rolling Stones, because
Mm,
Johnny Depp considers pirates the rock stars of the seas.
yeah.
He's got a cameo in the fourth one.
Does he really?
Yeah, he's Jack's dad.
Oh,
That's Keith Richards.
I didn't know who that was, and I was like, "This is odd." Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
okay,
say,
the
well,
dude keeps
let-
calling him
let-
Jackie.
Let's jump into
Well,
that
let's
movie,
get into this
shall we?
trash.
does anybody
man.
else have anything for the third one?
I don't think so.
No, let's talk about some trash.
Yep.
The Spanish have located the fountain of youth. I will not have some melancholy Spanish monarch, a Catholic, gain eternal life.
So now let's jump into the fourth movie.
Rob
On
Marshall, what are you doing?
Stranger
I don't think he
Tides.
knows what he's doing because I looked at his other films.
The Little Mermaid.
Mary Poppins remake,
Yeah.
The Little Mermaid. Like,
Remake or-
how is this guy a director?
I don't know. So that is one point we need to make, right? So the first three were made by Gore
Verbinski.
Thank you. Made by that dude.
Leave all that in. That's all saying. it.
Will.
And then we got a new guy with
Yeah.
Rob. So I just want to make that we have completely changed. We no longer are part of the trilogy. We're just trying to make money.
Is this 2011?
This is 2011.
Okay.
So big time jump between end of that At World's End and then when this one came out.
It's odd.
So they still try to keep to how the trilogy ended. So the end, right? So the third movie ended with him trying to find the Fountain of Youth.
Yeah.
With the map and just kind of going off in the distance on his own. And that's how this opens. Is we're still have that map and we're seeking the Fountain of
The
Fountain
issue
of
is
Youth.
it does a giant time jump,
It does. It's I believe 9 years, 9 or 8 years.
Yeah.
which doesn't make any sense. And now we've got new characters to replace the Will and Elizabeth archetype because they're nowhere to be found in this
Yep.
film.
And I think that's the biggest issue with this film is we are now just a Jack Sparrow film.
Right, and that's what I'm saying with the issue. Jack has to play off a certain type of character, and this film does not give him that. This is the Jack Sparrow show, and it doesn't work. It's too goofy, and there's no stakes. And also, this guy doesn't know how to shoot a movie. Oh my god, the shots are so bland, man. There's nothing interesting to look at. And I was doing some research. Apparently, they were trying to shoot mostly practical locations in Hawaii. It doesn't work. Whatever it is that you did, it doesn't work, and it's bad.
I've seen the original trilogy, and then I've watched the fifth one in theaters when it came out. So I've never seen the fourth one until we were preparing for this video.
Oh, really?
Oh wow.
So like, I'm getting into this, and there's just people coming in, and it's not the same people we've seen. I'm like, what? Is this a movie? Like, this is so weird.
They start in London, which is an odd choice. I get that the first
Yeah.
one started in kind of a city, but it's a port in the Caribbean. That makes sense. Being in London makes no sense. Jack as a judge makes no sense.
We kind of talked about this. We were kind of vibing with it up until Jack walks out as the judge. I was kind of like, this is kind of interesting.
Come on. You knew that was coming, though.
So
I didn't. I actually did not.
I blocked this movie out of my brain because I first saw it on a Disney cruise. I believe it was an early showing, but I was on a Disney cruise the year it came out, and they showed it in the theater on the ship. And I just didn't remember a single thing because after that, we decided it wasn't good and then went to go get some food.
So is his dad in this different than his dad in the third film?
No, it would have been the same.
The same actor?
Same
guy, yeah.
guy.
Is it the
It's
same? Okay.
Keith Richards, yeah.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
So.
So London, I mean, it could have been interesting, and
Yeah.
even that opening action scene, you know right away, just from how it's shot, it's so bland
Not
and
gonna be the
boring.
same,
It's
yeah.
not the same.
Yeah, it just feels like check boxes. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, Jack Sparrow, but it's like, we need an action scene. It's like, okay, but with the action sequence, do a little wacky thing. Look,
Yeah.
he's behind a rope.
And how do you feel about Barbosa in this?
I hated how his character was treated.
Yeah.
Awful.
It's so weird how he would like switch sides just like that because that's not what like Barbosa would do in
no.
like the other.
I was
three
so
movies.
confused.
Yeah.
I didn't like it at all.
I just didn't really
was
understand why like why he would
disrespectful.
double cross Jack like that or go against Jack because they work so well in the second and third film to like work together towards a common goal.
And
It
he's
never-
always honoring the pirate code.
Oh yeah.
To work with the,
I don't think he was ever a
the
fan of
king
Jack, though.
would be anti-pirate number one. Like, what the heck is he doing?
Yeah.
See, but
Yeah.
that because you just said that he he doesn't like Jack, but like it's still the pirate code.
Right. He's still part of the pirate code, but like there was always that tension of he wasn't necessarily friends with Jack.
Yeah.
Him becoming honorable.
Yeah. That
it just
doesn't make
it
sense.
just doesn't work because he's not honorable. He just
Yeah.
goes and works. Now he's got a budget. and it sucks.
Yeah, so he's now working for the king to find the Fountain of Youth. So that's kind of the whole plot point of this. We're all going after the Fountain of Youth.
Before we jump there, what was King George III? What was that?
Yeah.
He looked like a giant baby man that was sick. Like,
Isn't
what
that the guy
is
who
that?
plays Vernon Dursley
It's
in
Richard
Harry
Griffiths,
Potter?
yeah.
Like, is
Yeah.
he supposed to just be like an inbred joke? Which he probably was in real life, but it just was awkward. Like, you know what I mean?
I think it's supposed to be like a caricature. Like, it's not supposed to
Yeah.
be taken
Yeah.
seriously, but also it comes across as incredibly stupid because they don't pull it off
Like,
well.
he looks
Yeah.
like a tomato that you just leave out in the sun and you throw it on a baby, and that's what it looks like.
And then the whole thing with him like tossing the food up on the ceiling and the
Yeah.
fact that they like focus on that so much, I'm just like, what is this? Like,
Yeah,
the
it doesn't-
opening just sets the tone perfectly for me.
Jack's got to have his cupcake.
I mean, because I feel like that intro in the first film when he was running away, that's what they were trying to do in this film.
Yeah.
And it just fell so flat. So flat.
Yeah.
So
bad.
into the plot point here and the plot devices. So we have to go get a mermaid tear and chalices so that we can put the mermaid tear in the chalice and get the water and drink it.
There's nothing
So
Will likes
needlessly
more.
complicated.
I'll say there's nothing Will likes more than a fetch quest.
2 fetches. We got to fetch this and then that and then
such
do.
such obvious MacGuffins. It's and nothing, no interesting characters to back it up. No interesting style. Or
You don't like our
cinematography.
Blackbeard character?
You don't like Tai
Ian
Long as
McShane.
Blackbeard?
Our villain?
I love Ian McShane, but God, what an underwhelming villain. He doesn't feel like a bad guy at any point in time because he's just like, I'm Blackbeard. Hello.
And our battle will be legendary.
It's so
I
bad. And Penelope Cruz just has nothing on Keira Knightley's Elizabeth.
no.
Just
Not
their,
at
their
all.
chemistry isn't there. She's so annoying.
But I think that was
Why
kind of-
is she, after everything that happens, why is she like, you killed my dad? When Blackbeard was literally like, hey, kill yourself for me.
Right.
And she's like, what? And then all of a sudden she's like, oh, but I loved him. No, bad dad.
And even Jack Sparrow's like, hey, your dad should have done this for you. Like, you know it's
Yeah,
bad
just-
when Jack Sparrow's like slapping reality
Like
at another
he's,
person.
he's the moral
like,
standard.
like he's explaining, I'm like, yeah, Jack's right. Like, what?
Once again, a studio just learning all the wrong lessons from one of their successes.
Yep, for sure.
Well, even like the whole thing with like how they make a point to like say that she lied to Blackbeard about being her daughter or his daughter, and then they go back and they're like, oh wait, no, she's actually his daughter. I'm just like, what is that?
Why did you do
And
that?
also,
Yeah.
like the whole thing with the zombie crew feels like a cop out because okay, you can't kill those people. Like that would be much easier if the crew could fight back against them. But for me, it just feels like they added that in just because they needed some sort of like thing to move the plot forward.
Yeah, why is Blackbeard magic?
Yeah, that's never.
Why is he a
explained.
voodoo? Why is he a voodoo practitioner?
Like he's like shooting ropes, and I'm like,
Oh,
How do you
yeah.
do
Got a
that?
magic
Yeah.
He can
ship,
control the whole ship
zombies,
with the
he's
sword.
playing with voodoo dolls, none of which have any significance on the actual plot of the film.
I thought they would factor in more in like the ending. I thought that would be like the whole thing where like Jack has to fight against it, but nah, they
No,
just like
it's
you
just
would
there.
think.
Waterfall. Yeah.
Since
then-
they set it up.
We love how he can get all the ships into bottles, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he
Oh, he's-
captures. So
he's a
that's
collector.
another plot point. We got the
How?
Black Pearl.
Don't know.
He's a hobbyist.
Yeah.
Blackbeard is original Funko Pop guy. Like,
Yeah. So that's, I think, one thing. I think that's the plot point why Barbossa stopped being a pirate, right? He got beaten by.
Why didn't we see
Black-
that? What
I-
is
we didn't
this?
see
Is
it
a
at all.
Barbossa movie now? He's got the backstory with
Yeah.
Blackbeard. What?
Yeah, it's weird. So he lost the Black Pearl to Blackbeard, and lost his leg, I think, in that fight. Which
Yeah.
I don't know why we just randomly lose a leg and they don't show it.
that happens. You got a spare.
It happens. Fair enough.
So you can put rum in it and have
yeah.
a joke with Jack Sparrow.
And then
That
the,
tree sequence is wild.
the
He's like
tree
just-
sequence.
He's flying through the trees.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
my God.
I was like, he's just gooching his way on this tree, and I'm like, he's still going up there. He's like 50 feet in the air.
And then do we like our Philip Smith?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, that romance is
The whole
It
plot
made
point
no
with, between
sense.
the mermaid and the missionary, like I just do not understand what the point of that was.
Oh my goodness.
Like they get the tear and then they keep focusing on these two people. I'm just like, there's no chemistry between them. They don't have like the Will and Elizabeth of this series. Like I don't know why we should care about these people.
It
but
was just weird. No
and like he
point.
never gets a definite ending because like she pulls him underwater and that's the last thing we see and we're just like,
Yeah,
okay.
he just disappears.
All right.
Yeah.
He's
Did
gone
he
from the
die? Did he
movie.
live? Who knows? But
No
You're
one
right.
No one cares.
What the heck?
She was playing the long con and then ate that guy.
Yeah.
Because I noticed like she really takes him underwater. I'm like, man, He better be holding his breath.
Well, they mention when they're in the longboats that a mermaid's kiss can make a sailor breathe underwater, and they do kiss before she drags him underwater. So
Okay.
I'm thinking they don't explain
They
it.
live
'cause why would they? But like I'm thinking that he lives, and they're supposed to have like a happy ending, but it's just done so awkwardly where she's just like dragging him
it's like,
underwater. I'm like,
Bye.
Yeah, I never caught that. So I definitely thought he was dying.
Oh, yeah.
He was going to be drowned.
Jeez.
Just bad. And then it ends with Barbossa killing and defeating Blackbeard and taking the sword, and now he gets to have the magic.
It's just
Of
so
the ship.
lame.
they pull a little princess bride with the chalices.
Yeah.
Oh,
That was very much like that just felt like you just knew exactly what was happening
Oh,
right when
yeah.
that was happening. It's like he has 2 chalices, he gives one, I'm like, they're flipped.
And then
They've
the fact
gotta be
once
flipped.
Jack starts explaining it, I was like, you didn't have to do that. We could just watch Blackbeard die, and then you.
oh yeah.
What are you talking about?
You didn't.
I never
Before
followed
anything
this stuff.
happens,
I
he's
needed
just
it
like,
explained.
"Oops, I think I switched him."
I think the daughter in the movie needed it explained because she was like, what the heck?
I'm not dead. You killed my
That's
dad.
what I'm saying, and I'm like, she's like all about her dad. That's so like, is she gonna betray her dad? That whole plot point doesn't make any sense given
yeah.
what we find out at the end, which is just she's literally willing to die in place of her dad, which is dumb.
So ending this movie, 'cause
Please.
let's get off of this.
I got wait.
And then let's just rip
All right,
through the
what's your
one.
last
I
point
want to
here?
talk about how his boat's just like an amusement park ride. Like things are flying around. It's got fire shooting out of it.
Yeah,
Oh
Like
yeah,
what?
I forgot about that. The whole fire shit.
And then he like double cooks them. It's like toast. It's crazy.
Oh yeah.
Ridiculous. So this is the least favorite I like rated out of all the films.
really.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Critics and audience, we agree on this.
Yeah, it's the
This
worst
is
one.
the worst one. But is the second highest grossing, which I mentioned earlier, still hitting $1 billion, riding that high from the trilogy. So
How much money did this cost to make? Because you said this was the most expensive movie at all time in 2011.
I actually don't have that number. I would assume it's probably hitting 250, 300
I mean, that seems all right. Yeah.
because the first one was about
What did you ask the budget?
140, yeah,
The budget was $379
379.
for this movie,
for this movie.
This is the highest, most costing, right?
This is the most expensive movie made at that point.
Jeez.
that's
Maybe
more.
still.
That's. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's more than like a lot of like big superhero movies.
Which
now.
is
Yeah.
That's crazy.
insane to me because it doesn't feel that way.
Nope.
What they
right?
put it on?
Like the third film.
Well, $55 million went to Johnny Depp.
Crazy.
And he admits that he was overpaid.
All right, let's get out of this. Next film was Dead Men Tell No Tales, coming out in 2017.
Jack Sparrow. Jack Sparrow. Jack Sparrow. Jack Sparrow. Jack the Sparrow. Hey, Jack Sparrow. Jack the Sparrow. Jack Sparrow. Jack Sparrow. Hola, Sparrow. Sparrow. Jack Sparrow.
Jack Sparrow.
How do we feel about this one, guys?
Jack Sparrow. He's like a little bird, Jack Sparrow. He just keeps saying that, yeah.
We got
I
to
mean, it's a menial step up. I mean, but like, why are they stealing a bank? Pirates are robbers at the sea. Robbers on,
Oh, yeah,
they're
that
not
opening?
robbers
That
on
whole
land. That's just
scene.
thieves.
It's Fast and
Why
Furious
are they
5.
doing that?
See,
Why
but
are
this-
they what?
But they bring like everybody back for this. This is like
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
kind
saw a
of.
Letterbox review where it's just like, why does no one in this franchise stay dead? And I'm like, that's actually accurate because they all come back. Like
Yeah.
everyone is just
Not Elizabeth's dad.
true.
oh
He's
yeah,
dead.
He's
Nice.
he
dead.
sailed right into the
And
abyss.
Beckett's gone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yay.
we're fine with that.
Yeah,
Take
he's
that,
chill with that.
Beckett.
He doesn't care about that.
Not at all.
So
Comment
this
if you're Beckett.
jumping into this film, right? We got our Henry Turner. We finally get that plot point because I think at the end of the third film we did get that after credits.
No,
We
it was
saw
there?
his Will's son.
Oh dang, I didn't know that.
No, you didn't know.
No.
So if you go through all the credits of the third film, we get this small little plot point of Will's son and him coming back onto land after 10 years
Yeah.
And that,
for the first time.
that's 2007. That third one came out, right?
Yes.
So that's before Iron Man. And end credits. That's
yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah, I think
find
that's
that interesting.
I think that's the first one, and then I think they do it in every single one after that. So I know we skipped this, but in Stranger Tides, they left what's her name, Angelica. We didn't like her. on an island, and then it ends after the credits. The voodoo doll of
Jack Sparrow.
comes up on the ocean, and then you just get a shot of her smiling, which is weird. Cinema.
Glad I didn't watch that.
So, anyways, back to that. We get that whole build up because that's what I thought the fourth film was going to be. Is we were going to get his son, and we finally get it 10 years later, 2017. Henry Turner. We're going to go save his father, which he can do this by finding the trident of Poseidon and destroying it and destroying every other movie in the franchise.
But, like, why was this
Pretty
never
much.
mentioned
Yeah.
before now? Like, this was never mentioned before now. Even
No.
when they were talking about Davy Jones's curse and the Flying Dutchman, it's just like no mention of the trident.
Why didn't we
Like,
just do the trident at the beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel
Why are
like
they-
the trident would solve most problems.
That would have been so much easier than seeking all of the medallions, looking for the blood, and like
a mermaid
So
tear.
a lot more
thought it was
complicated.
I thought it was going to be you had to find it and pick a curse to break, not when you break the trident.
It's all
curses
curses.
break. I thought it had like a finite amount of uses or something, or
Oh,
the
yeah.
wielder could like break specific curses. No.
And I think that's why when I initially saw this movie made me the most angry. I think the fourth film is the worst movie, but this one made me the most angry because of that.
It breaks the universe.
It broke the universe. It made the other three movies look awful, or not look awful, but it ruined the whole
it ruins the
plot
logic.
devices.
It
yeah.
does.
Because at least with 4, it's like, well, stuff's happening, but like, it doesn't break the unit, and the other stuff still happening. It's fine. But this, it's like, why just not do that? Yeah. And then I guess could you not make another movie with any more curses, or is there going to be like Pirates of the Caribbean 6, The New Curse?
Yeah, what is that going to be? Are we going to get another one? I
Just
don't know.
pirates
We'll
shooting
talk.
things.
Yeah.
There are no more supernatural elements.
We're done.
So we got our new characters. We got Henry, and then we meet this new girl named Karina, which is an astronomer, genius.
Honestly,
I dislike
after
her more.
Angelica, fine.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I like her.
She kind of annoyed me.
She kind of annoyed me too.
I like
Okay.
Angelica
I-
more. I think.
I was so jaded after that fourth one. I was like, whatever.
I think the whole thing with her being called a witch got old really fast.
Yes,
every
that
time
was
she was on
bad.
screen, They were like, witch!
They were
witch!"
trying to beat you over the head with
Yeah.
she do science. It not good in this time.
No.
She a smart lady.
Yeah, they were really trying to beat you over the head with that, and it was not landing.
Yep, did not like that.
It
And then-
felt very modern, which I know it's the most recent one, but like,
yeah, and that was the main issue with it. I think was like it tried to be too modern, tried to take points from the other films, and then tried to be unique and different and destroy the everything, right? Just solve the whole universe. I don't know. It was weird. And of course, later we learn that Karina is Barbossa's daughter.
Womp womp.
what a twist.
Wow.
Yeah, for 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It matters for 5 seconds.
Yeah,
And then Barbossa dies.
Yeah, goodbye. That was, I mean, I guess that was sad.
Yeah.
I guess.
Didn't feel earned because it felt
No.
like the death was really stupid.
Yeah.
It's- yeah.
I know, he just fell into some water. I was like,
Just
you-
the
you
moment,
could-
the
you could
moment they get in
swim.
that little like water alley in this movie, I just check out completely. I'm just like, I'm
Parting
not,
of the Red Sea.
yeah.
Yeah. It's
bad.
just like
Barbossa came to the same fate as the Egyptians.
yeah. So we get that whole scene at the end. They destroy the trident, and then we get our happy ending. Will comes back.
woohoo.
Woo!
For like, and then Keira Knightley comes back for like 5
Yep.
seconds.
Okay.
and
To
has
give
zero
Will a
lines.
hug.
Yeah.
Probably got
Do
paid
you
like
guys
$3
know
million.
this ending scene after the credits?
No.
I didn't know any of them.
Okay.
Gosh.
So this one ends with Will waking up with a nightmare with Davy Jones hanging over his bed, and then he wakes
Actual-
up.
Wait, actual Davy Jones?
He wakes up and he's like, no one's there. Oh, it's just a nightmare. And then it pans down to the floor where there's barnacles and wet. So apparently Davy Jones was actually there.
Like watching.
Okay, but
him?
why though?
I no clue. That's how the movie ends.
Also,
with
I
the
thought
end
the
credits.
curse was
Yeah,
broken.
I thought curses were new curse. Pirates of the Caribbean 6, new curse.
Yeah, so they break everything.
Also, he's dead.
And then I don't know.
Apparently,
man.
when you're in a whirlpool, like curses don't apply. So like when they break the trident,
Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay, that's what it was.
I also wondered, like, how did Will survive? Because he's under the ocean 24/7, and then they broke the curse. How did he not drown?
pretty sure like I don't know. They keep saying like the ship just like appears out of nowhere. So I'm thinking like maybe it's just like
But,
It's-
that
it-
magic's gone. He
It's like
killed
the
it.
Thanos logic where it's like, if you were in an airplane when you got Thanos snapped, and when you come back, like you're not going to be like just in the air,
Oh.
like in a seating position and just fall to your death.
I mean, that would be pretty funny.
Yeah.
As long as you're not that dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this film is rated like a 60, so not much better than the last film. But
Too high.
I do agree. Yeah, it probably is a little too high. I do agree it's better than the fourth film, looking back at it. I think this is the least grossing film, though. It did $795 million, and I think the second film did around 980. So we had two that broke $1 billion, and then one that was 980, and then this is only 800.
The look of this one is so digital. Like, I don't know what it was, but the whites are just so blown out in this movie. I don't know. Maybe I'm nitpicking, but I just thought it looked like crap.
Yeah.
Mitchell, movie expert.
It definitely didn't look as expensive as the other ones. I don't think these directors have done anything else really that's like notable. I think they do a few indie films.
Yeah.
But they don't really have their own distinct style. I mean, Rob Marshall looked cheap too, like his movie. But like, come on, the guy, it's kind of his specialty at this point. Like looking at his other movies,
Yeah.
like Mary Poppins and Little Mermaid, like you can kind of say, oh, that tracks. But like this one, for me, definitely the most cheap looking. Just the shots of like Jack Sparrow in the end getting whipped around like a rag doll by like that wave thing just looks so incredibly dull. And also the character designs of Salazar, that's his name. His crew, just like
So bland.
yeah, it's not like the Davy Jones stuff. It's
Yeah.
like kind of weird, but
We got a teenage Jack Sparrow out of it.
yeah, that was weird. I couldn't tell if that was actually Johnny Depp or some other kid.
That was
I don't know
terrible.
what
That was
whatever
so
it is.
bad.
I was like,
the
weird.
face of his shape. It was a de-aged. I don't know if it was Johnny Depp acting, but the face of his shape, the shape of his face changed shot to shot.
This is the age of just let's start this de-aging process, and you're all gonna love it.
That's why I think it looks like this too, is because this was the age of we're gonna shoot on digital and we want it to look as digital as possible, so we're just gonna boost the contrast.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it just has that flat, sterile look. Because
Well,
the trilogy was shot on film.
Yeah.
So it's got just so much more texture to it.
Well, even like that one scene with the guillotine that's like spinning.
Oh my
looks
gosh.
So
Yeah,
fake.
That's so bad.
Yeah. Just like even like the set pieces, like we've seen it before. They break people out of like a hanging. It's like a classic like a trope of this franchise. But that one, like, it doesn't feel real, and it doesn't feel like it's actually happening on screen. The other ones felt like they were blocked out, choreographed. This one feels like they said, "Oh, just pretend you're swinging in a guillotine. We'll add it in post." Like, I don't know how you can do that realistically. If they actually wanted to do that, like realistically, I don't know if they could have found a way to do it. But I just think that compared to the other ones, the action is just so fake looking, and I think that's kind of why this one in particular kind of doesn't really appeal to most people of this that are fans of this franchise.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It just felt like a lack of effort,
For sure.
honestly.
felt
So-
boring.
But I am curious because we look at the numbers and it did well. So I kind of respect that they didn't do another one. But I wonder if there was
Yeah,
more
well-
politics to it.
Well, they're about
Right.
They're
There's
going to
a-
do the thing where they wait 10 years,
Right.
starve us,
Right.
and
I'd
then
rather
release one.
them do that than do another one.
Yeah.
Weren't they planning them for all the Johnny Depp Amber Heard stuff? She stepped on a bee happen.
I think they mentioned it. I think they mentioned it, but I don't think Johnny Depp was not signed for that one.
Well, it was.
And then now with all of that stuff, now everyone wants him back. So I think there's politics there.
because
They
they were
want him
supposed to
back.
go with like Karen Gillan, who's like Gamora or not, the Nebula from Guardians of the Galaxy. Like I think she was supposed to do it at one point. It was just like in production for a while. Not being in production, but like
It was mentioned.
yeah, like like there have been just rumblings on it, but
Yeah.
because they just know like this ain't good. We don't know what to do. Or bring back Johnny Depp, but just have him play like a different pirate. I don't know.
That's what the way to do this would just be have a completely different character set, but in that world. That's the way to do it. We've exhausted Jack Sparrow. Lay that character to rest.
Yeah, I don't think you need to bring him back at all.
No.
Don't even do a cameo.
I thought you could do, or not. I thought I heard a guy saying that you could do something with like Zoe Saldana and do something with kind of her thing because
I
she's
forgot
really
about her.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just kind of disappears.
and she's still she's big and hot like in movies. So it's like just do something with her, same universe,
Yeah.
and it all connects, and then hopefully everybody.
Was she ever come back after the first one?
I don't think so. I could be wrong.
So
Though.
she was the girl that he stole that dinghy ship from in the first film, just so that people know who we're talking about. Interesting fact about her, that was her first big blockbuster film. And she was like, never again. This is too serious. There's too much going on. And then she comes back for
And then
Guardians
she
of the
did
Galaxy
Guardians,
for
yeah.
sure.
I was gonna say like she's in like some of the biggest franchises.
She was only
Avatar,
23.
bro, that's like major.
She was 23 when that came out, so she was our age, which is
Ah,
yeah.
Well, yeah, but look, take that, Zoe Saldana.
gotcha.
Take that
Gotcha.
twice, Zoe Saldana.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
It happened.
It happened.
It's a movie.
We
series.
love it. Let us know what your favorite film is out of all of the 5. You better not say 4 or 5, or we will.
Be kind of funny if you did though. Like, let's be
At
real.
least it's not 4. If you like 4, tell us why, and we'll block you.
No, it'll be interesting. If somebody objectively thinks that's their movie, I want to know
All right,
their reasoning.
For real,
comment
yeah.
and try to defend it.
Like, are you, like,
Try.
Are you
Good
a big
luck.
mermaid guy? Like you, Mr. Mermaid? Like, why do you, or Mrs. Mermaid? You know, I don't know.
Anyways, let us know. Slap a like, subscribe, check out Michael's channel. Not Mitchell, sorry.
Mitchell, how
That's
about you
staying
say?
in. Thanks for watching.
No time. How about Mitchell says where you can find Mitchell?
All right, yeah.
You can find me on Letterboxd, Movies W Mitch, because Movies with Mitch was taken, and you can also find me at Movies with Mitch on YouTube. With this time, not the W, because that wasn't taken on YouTube. But yeah,
We've been there.
yeah.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
watching.